coming. I'm really thrilled to have you all here, and I'm really thrilled to have our amazing panel of speakers. I'm really excited to delve into this topic. It's one that I think about pretty much consistently, and so I think we've got a lot of juicy stuff to talk about. To get started, I just would like to have each of the panelists introduce themselves and talk a little bit about the company that they're with. And since Karla, I'll start with you since you're right next.
Okay, first victim. My name is Karla Zens. I work for Capital Pacific. We're an investment brokerage firm. We sell real estate across the country. My company is not at all a green company, but I created my green role within my company and within the sector of retail. So trying to work with developers who are selling green property and help them get more out of it by communicating value to investors. So every day I'm faced with the challenge of how to sell green to people who think about it a pretty specific way, and look forward to getting into that. And by night, I'm a product developer. I created Zip Cup only because I wanted it, and I was tired of carrying a big water bottle, so it's a collapsible, a big coffee cup, sorry, look at the water bottle. It's a collapsible coffee cup. I was looking at other collapsible cups, and I couldn't put hot beverage into it, and it was just bulky and leaky, so I created Zip Cup. Yeah, me too. I'm funding the first round of manufacturing right now. So.
She's doing an Indiegogo campaign right now.
Yes. Yeah. On to you.
My name is Pam Marcus. I'm the co-founder of a company called LifeFactory. We make glass water bottles and also baby bottles with protective silicone sleeves to prevent breakage. We also make sippy cups and accessories, teethers. So we specialize in glass and silicone. This idea was born out of, I worked as a physical therapist, a pediatric physical therapist for many years at Kaiser Oakland, and was a feeding specialist. So I fed little babies in the neonatal intensive care unit. So, so I wanted to have a less toxic and safer, better for the environment bottle, and that was our first product. And also at that time, I wanted a glass bottle myself. I was drinking out of a glass Snapple bottle, so it was also born out of a want for something that I wanted, because I was using it, and luckily other people also wanted it. So, and that's the company.
I was carrying around glass water bottles that you buy that are supposed to be disposable.
Mm-hmm. Right. Boss bottles?
Boss bottles, yes.
Some people still do. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I broke a bunch of them though. So.
Oh.
Okay, I'm Linda Brown. I'm the Executive Vice President and co-founder of Scientific Certification Systems. And I'll say right now, you'll be the first to hear this in public, that we are going through a corporate identity update. And as of, I guess it's next month, we're going to be SCS Global Services. And so that speaks to the very amazing interest that there has been worldwide in the whole area of third-party independent certification of environmental and sustainability claims for products in all kinds of business sectors: green building, food and agriculture, natural resources, fish, forests, you name it, basically. So our niche, what we began. The reason we began was because we were worried about lying and cheating in the marketplace. So not unlike you, we had a need that wasn't being filled, and we wanted to satisfy ourselves that claims on food were accurate. And my partner is a chemist, and we started testing the food, and lo and behold, we were able to see some of the differences shake out. And so we set up third-party certification partners for food, and that gradually expanded, and now we have affiliates and partners and subsidiaries in many countries around the world, and we're very excited to be SCS Global Services. So I'm looking forward to telling you a little bit more about that, and also answering and talking about the subject tonight. Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks for being here.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for the invitation. summarize it as a sustainable Wikipedia on steroids. It's a platform where we can share and find sustainable solutions that are out there. As a background, I'm an architect, and this is born a bit out of frustration. I used to work with Bill McDonough, maybe some of Cradle to Cradle and so on heard of. Yeah, it takes so much time to just get to see what's out there in the market, even with Google. So the idea is how can we save on this time, and then opening it up not only for construction but for every sector and even for lifestyle.
Thank you. And I realize I didn't introduce myself. My name is Lisa Ann Pinkerton, and I founded Women in Cleantech Sustainability about a year and a half ago. And I'm also founder of Technica Communications, and we're a clean technology and public relations firm. And I would call us a boutique firm, so we're a small, mid-sized firm. And we're based in Pinkerton. And so that's what I do by day is public relations, and by night I organize these panels. So thank you for being here. So before we get into the topic, I want to give Linda and Andy a little bit more time. They brought some slides. And so I wanted to give them a moment to explain what they do a little bit more, and then we'll get into the topic at the end, okay? So Linda, why don't we start with you, because we have a few slides.
Oh, sure. There are really just a few slides and nothing extensive, because I really wanted to respect and appreciate having Hanover and this to be more of a conversation and less of a presentation. I can get really boring.
Yeah, I come from radio,
bored
so
before, right?
that's why we do it this way.
Can't see anything.
Can't see anything, right? So it's just conversation.
No, I'm going to do something else. I'm a Mac person.
Nothing against dogs.
All right. This is an area, third-party certification isn't necessarily something all of you are going to be familiar with, so that's why I thought it might be useful just to put a slide up or two. And basically, we work in all these different sectors that I mentioned a few minutes ago. And it's the whole raft of environmental green, everything that you think of as green claims right now is an area now that's open to certification potential. And the reason for that is because, as you know, and when you go shopping or in whatever you do professionally, that everyone claims that they're green. Everyone claims to be sustainable. These terms have no meaning. And the whole point of having standards, and I'm not talking about technical standards for, gadgets like this beautiful thing, but I am talking about standards for making claims, that they have to mean something. And so we're believers in the consumer's right to know, and have always been strong advocates for environmental literacy. If people are going to make statements about the environment, they should actually mean something. So, aside from that, we're a registered B Corporation, and I did want to mention that in case any of you are registering in the state of California or, contemplating that with new companies, think about becoming a B Corporation. It's a new kind of corporation, if you haven't heard of it, which is a benefit corporation now recognized in the state of California only as of this year. And we walked down to Sacramento with Yvonne Chenard of Patagonia and some other companies, and we all signed our new charters. And it means that we're all on a social mission, that we're for-profit companies, but we have a social mission and we have social obligations to our employees in the way that we work and the way we conduct ourselves, as a business. And I think it's a great innovation. So it's kind of part of this whole discussion of sustainability, so I put that on there. Okay, next slide. If you see us in the marketplace in the future, it's going to be with this mark. You've never seen it before, but we're unifying all of the things that we do under the Kingfisher mark, because the Kingfisher stands for a healthy, strong habitat. It's a universally present bird that is well loved, and it's also endangered in habitats where they're being destroyed. So to make, essentially, and for all of you who are making claims if you're developing products, you'll need to know about the Federal Trade Commission Green Guides, and those establish guidelines for what you can and can't say legally in this country. But beyond that, there are basically make sure it's a significant claim. And so the classic example, I'm sure many of you have heard before, it was no caffeine in Sprite. So making a caffeine-free claim on a Sprite bottle is not a significant claim. But people did it. When we got into this business, all kinds of claims like that were all over the place. There was, the biodegradable galvanized steel trash cans. I mean, crazy claims that people would make because biodegradable was a claim that people made. Transparent, what you're saying should be clear and transparent. It shouldn't be opaque and difficult to understand. It should be backed scientifically. It shouldn't be a statement that you can't test and validate. And it should not be overstated. So, oh my God, there were so many terrible claims. Environmentally light was my favorite one. Environmentally L-I-T-E, whatever that means. I mean, we have seen so many interesting claims. But they're not overstating the claim. It's something like, don't call it environmentally friendly if what you're trying to say is it's recycled. Say it's recycled. These are examples of how we're addressing these claims. So you can see we certify, and I just pulled up examples of certifying in a variety of different fields. So if you're familiar with some of these, like some of you in the green building industry probably know who FSC is, or Forest Stewardship Council. We're an accredited certifier. So our mark of responsible forestry goes with that, versus our mark of indoor air quality goes with an indoor air claim. It doesn't say environmentally friendly, it says indoor air quality. Pesticide residue free, lab tested down to government limit of detection protocols, which is about 0.01 parts per million. Every claim that we put out, it's specific, and that's what I was talking about when I said make sure the claim is transparent and clear and not overstated. So these are just some examples of products. Anyway, that's all. I didn't really want to bore you guys with it. I just wanted to kind of set the stage for what I was talking about with certification and claims and labeling.
Okay, thank you. And Andy, I just want to give Andy a few minutes just to show you what SUSPRO looks like so that you can get a better handle on it, so that we know what he's talking about when he's referring to it.
So SUSPRO, we could imagine it being an abbreviation of Sustainable Professional. That was the original idea. In the meantime, again, it's also focused to lifestyle. This is a homepage right now, which we're actually going to be changing pretty soon. There are like some videos over here which you can click. Here we see some featured entries, and we can search, for example, sustainable solutions in looking for your profession or for a place, like say a house, a hotel, a bakery, or companies that offer it, etc. It's also international. So, as mentioned earlier, we started in Spain, and the Spanish version has got roughly almost 20,000 entries. The American, we're just getting started, so much less than that. And yeah, I'll show you a bit how it works. So to start off with, we've got a search space. Actually, this week we implemented a new semantic search engine, so where we can type a sentence or and actually here I would need to go to the Spanish one because we just dropped today the beta, so we're still polishing here and there. But let's imagine, for example, let's get an example, a baker. We're a baker, so we click on baker. That's a typical.
It only happens when you have an audience.
Español is okay.
I'm interested.
You can just show it in the
sorry. So for example, a baker, we can see solutions that are equipment, or food, or packaging, or utensils. Every time where we see this green plus, it means that anybody can click on the plus and add more information. So if I know utensils that are related with sustainable bakery, I can click on the plus and create an entry. But let's see a already existing entry. So this here is a pan where you put down your muffins or whatever. And one would think, okay, what's this got to do with sustainability? Well, first of all, here you've got the description, you've got the different images, the company. You can rate the company, the product. You can see the sustainable benefits, which we subdivide according to that, which is ecological, social, or economical. So under ecological, for example, this happens to be a tray that's, 50% less material than averages. It's made out of aluminum. So this allows, you've got less weight, it heats up faster, it cools down quicker. It's got like a special coating. So less material, less waste, uses recycled content because of it being aluminum, saves energy because it can heat up quicker. Since it weighs less, in terms of picking it up many times, there's a ergonomic value to it, so that goes under the social, the health. Economical reduces maintenance. If you put it like in machines which are carrying it, they have to also carry less weight, so less maintenance. Lower power consumption, saves time. Anyway, and you can check what company does it. You get the contacts, the name of the company. You can add videos, links, documentation. You can leave comments. So this is just one entry. If we click, for example, in utensils, in the categories, then we can see other sustainable utensils that are out there in the market. Also, so again, you can search by profession, by place, but also by sustainable benefit. I jumped here to the Spanish version, but we'll actually, let's see. If we define sustainable, the ecological benefit as that which provides you value in terms of water saving or energy, etc. So in the ecology, we've got water, we've got energy, we've got waste, toxicity. So imagine we want to find out about water. We can search that which helps us reduce water consumption, or helps us store water, or infiltrate water, or purify water. So we click on one of these, and then we can also additionally add a profession or a range of miles. So I can search for that which helps me infiltrate water, that's applicable to an architect inside a radius of 20 kilometers. So you can really narrow down. And whenever anybody wants to add information, they can, add this. So who is this of use? Imagine you work for a city hall, and you want to find what solutions pay for themselves in less than 4 years. So you search for products that pay for themselves typically in less than 4 years. Be it because of energy reduction or water reduction, or we saw the example of the baker. Let's say you're Apple and Nokia, you want to find who makes in the market the lowest radiation antenna for your mobile phone. So this is a business-to-business and business-to-commerce platform, B2B, B2C. For consumers again, who makes the non-toxic toys for your kids. So our challenge right now is getting people, companies to know that this is out there so that they can contribute and add the information about their companies. It's also not only for products or services, but also practices, recommendations, like in the Spanish, I'll show you actually. In the Spanish version, for example, we've got somebody added an entry. Okay. Well, let's imagine that you've got an egg below your accelerator in your car, a raw egg, and you don't want to break it. So you just press it just a bit so you don't break it. So that forces you to anticipate the traffic, and you accelerate less, you brake less, and it sounds really silly. I tried it, but you can reduce fuel consumption by 10% with that tip, and use more the stairs, less. So it's really sharing sustainable knowledge in a really broad manner. And yeah.
That's good. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate that. So let's get on down to the topic then. Motivating consumers to buy more sustainable brands. When I say that phrase, this is not a question actually, I prepped it off for, but I'm just coming up with it now. What does that mean to you? Like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about motivating consumers to buy more sustainable brands?
I'll say one word,
Yeah.
information.
Information.
I'm gonna stop there.
Education.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that first people need to know through some of the tools and how, why is this better? Why is A better than B? I don't have a lot of money, I don't have a lot of time to make this decision, so how do I make it?
And Pam, when you started LifeFactory, did you find that you had to do a lot of educating consumers, or were consumers already sort of primed for your product?
Yeah, I think, fortunately, we're pretty primed for the product. They were primed for the products because when they're looking for glass, they've probably already done a lot of research on dangers of plastic, so they're seeking that out, and so pretty fortunate. But we do get a lot of calls from people that say, well, I think the education of it, glass breaks, and so does this sleeve make it so it's unbreakable? We keep it make it shatterproof, or else the question is why should I buy your bottle over a BPA-free bottle when that one won't shatter? So the education that BPA-free, going back to you, is BPA-free doesn't mean that it's BPA-free. That it can be BPS, BPD, BPF. It could be BPA derivatives, which could usually have more endocrine activity than BPA. So there's that, there's not that accountability, unfortunately, that tells the consumer, the average consumer, about what that's about. And so the education of that is, I think, really important. And it's actually a pretty easy sell because it's clear, it's transparent. People want that. They want the purity. They want a safe product. And they're either coming to us because they don't like the taste of plastic or they don't like the taste of metal. So they're coming to us.
So I'm just rip right off of that. And what you just said is so true. People want simple answers to everything. And when consumers are looking to buy sustainable products or green products, I think you said it first, they want it to be easy. They want the convenience of someone having figured this out. Unfortunately, it's not so easy. And I always come at these, when I think about this, I have two responses. One, people want convenience. They want something that doesn't cost more, and they want quality. And those are always going to be the drivers of what people want when they go shopping for something. They're not going to sacrifice those things. Yes, there are occasions when, yes, they will buy something that's more expensive. But I brought over some statistics I'm not going to read, but they just reinforce what I already know from years of working in this field. People say they're going to spend more money, but they don't spend more money. They don't have more money to spend. And so it's really up to the producers of sustainable products or green products or products that really offer a benefit to come up with a way to offer those products that can satisfy those other concerns, or through education, have a sufficient education issue is the life cycle of the product, and what you just mentioned about BPA and other toxic chemicals, you can't play shell games. So if you're going to have get rid of one bad chemical and replace it with another one, what's the point of that? Then you're just going to create consumer apathy over the long run. People get very frustrated with, well, I can't, I've tried everything, and the next thing I hear is scientists out here saying that's bad, I can't do anything right, so I'm not going to. And what we have to do is not turn people off. And so what we come back to over and over again is we need to use true life cycle assessment, comprehensive evaluation of environmental impacts, so that we're not buying into hidden and unintended environmental trade-offs.
In Germany, there was this test at the university, and there were some university students. I don't remember exactly all the details, but basically the idea was following. Somebody said, here, I give you 50 euros or whatever, you take it now, or you wait for a month and then I give you 70, or for 2 and I give you 100. And people normally tend to take the 50 now, and so we're hardwired in our brains for short-term gratification, and it really is a challenge to look a step further down the road. And I think this is really applicable to sustainability. It's not always evident. For example, one thing that for me as an architect is really frustrating is, okay, spend a bit more so you have natural ventilation or natural illumination, and sometimes you don't have to spend, but the thing is, if your productivity of your workforce, if it increases by 1 or 2%, I mean, that's economically the benefit, but the thing is it's not completely evident, it's a bit hidden. So, like for example, if we go to Northern European countries, Sweden, Netherlands, what we call perhaps here sustainable, for them it's just good practices. So it's a cultural matter, it's an economical matter, it's an education matter. So it's many things in one, so definitely education is a big one.
And Karla, you do work on the commercial side as well. So how does that, is there any difference between commercial versus more consumer motivations?
I think there is. In some ways it's easier because it boils down to money, it boils down to risk, and it boils down to relevance. So will this product save me money? Am I going to eliminate a future risk by making a sustainable change? Or what is my competitor doing? Am I still relevant? What are my investors asking for? So those are very easy to address. I think that when you get into consumer, we're driven by emotion, we're driven by stories, we're driven by price. The palette is a lot broader. I'm not saying it's easier in commercial because, commercial building is still a really tough industry to get to enact change in, and I'm in retail, which is the hardest sector. But that, I think, is the main difference. You can usually find that the decision maker has a narrow focus, and consumers all over the place.
And is it like the decision maker in a commercial setting, they've got other people to answer to, so it has to be really black and white. This is what we're doing and why we're doing it. And from a consumer standpoint, it's often like, well, this is just what I wanted to do, right? It felt good.
Yeah.
And I'm not answerable to anybody else.
It is, and I just think that, again, you can be guided by your gut, or because you're on a website, you read a story about why this color palette was chosen for the water bottles, and you can get captivated, or you can be at the store and this packaging is better, but it's very cut and dry when it comes to real estate. And right now, especially with where the industry is, there's so many other pressures that the decision makers have, that sustainability now is just becoming something that has to be part of the conversation, but for years it hasn't been. So something they felt like they could ignore, and just now I think it's finally at the point where it can't be ignored, but no one really knows exactly what to do, and no one's presenting the story to the decision makers in a way that they make better decisions, or decisions that we might consider better.
And I guess this gets back to sort of the state of labeling. I mean, do consumers, Linda, do consumers really pay that much attention to labels? What is your experience?
That's a complicated question, of course. People do pay a lot of attention when you first were introduced to nutritional labels, probably no one read them, right? But it took time. It was the repetition of seeing them over and over and over and hearing about them over and over and over. I think it's going to be the same with environmental labels. That repetition of real information that people can count on over time will create a consumer that actually starts to read labels. But it's not instantaneous. And the problem right now we have with certification labels is people are used to put out pretty picture certification labels that don't really provide good solid information behind them. We're fortunate because we're in the internet age when people can actually QR code or Twitter or do whatever they need to do by their social media channels or whatever their other networks and find out what's behind the product claims. And so that's kind of putting us in a whole new world that we haven't been to before. But I think that the answer is repetition of solid, reliable information is what's going to drive people over time to making good decisions with environmental labeling and good labeling of attributes.
So this is a question, my last question for the full panel, then I'll open it up for questions. I have plenty of questions. Want to include you all. What is your vision? What is the vision that you see for the sustainable products space in motivating, let's face it, like more sales, right? What is your vision for that, and what needs to happen to make that vision a reality? Who wants to go first?
For more, well, so you try, well,
So
I guess
what's
I
your
take it
vision?
for the whole, for more sales?
Yeah, or for
Or
just-
product, or
Yeah,
just in general?
in general, just like, I would love to see more people buying more sustainable products, period.
Right.
So to me, that would mean just more sales of sustainable products overall. And so what do you see needs to happen in order to make that a reality? What's the challenge?
I guess I thought about the question of being like, what's my vision of
Okay.
overall? Like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, so overall, so like, what would I like in my perfect world would be, there's no more plastic disposable single-use bottles, that plastic becomes a more of a valuable commodity, that it's not used for disposable purposes, that there's no plastic straws, no plastic bags, all of those things. And what that would entail would be, it could be, I mean, that's pretty complicated. So what that would mean would that people would have to change their lifestyles, of course. And is it penalizing people if they have to use those, if they have to pay for that, So that's another question. So that's what I think that needs to happen. I don't think that that's going to happen within our generation. I think that's for the next generation to come up with. But that's my vision of my perfect world would be. I mean, I'm more about, I guess our company is more about using things, and it's not more about buying more stuff. It's buying more sustainable products. It's a matter of just reusing what you have and buying less stuff, being less of a consumer. So I always think about less rather than buying more. But for more sales, this is the story you have to tell is yeah, you are decreasing the use of single-use water bottles by using reusable bottles. So and this could last you for a long time, could last a lifetime. So it's a smart purchase, and hopefully that story that's why they pay a little bit more for it.
So Linda, in the certification space, what do you see as the biggest challenge?
Well, you're asking, you first asked the question about reusing, the vision for motivating sales, and I did bring this statistic along, because I thought it might be interesting for people to hear some of these statistics, because it goes right to your question. So, since we're in a group of women primarily, no disrespect intended to the men in the audience, I thought you'd be interested to know that 88% of women say they like brands that allow me to do something good. So if 88% of women are saying that, and this is Fleischman, Hiller, and Harrison for 2010 research, that's pretty remarkable. So part of this is going to be tapping into some of these proclivities that demographic subgroups have 92% of moms want to buy a product supporting a cause. So talk about making a case for cause marketing, this is quite the case. And moms are also, as you all know, and women are primary shoppers for household and food products. And what did you say it was, Chip, 85 cents on the dollar are spent by women?
85 cents on the dollar generally.
Yeah. So, it says 80% of consumers are likely to switch brands similar in price and quality to one that supports a cause. 50% of shoppers say they consider elements of sustainability through the life cycle as they select products, and on and on. There's some just really fascinating. It's, to me, I've been watching these statistics for years because I've been in business for 28 years. And these are really strong numbers. They're as strong as they've ever been. And so it really is both a generational shift that's happening. There's just noting on the young adults, millennials, so take these statistics with a grain of salt. Nearly 1 in 5 of the youngest adults aged 18 to 29 say they're willing to pay significantly more for green goods. That's more than twice as many as any other age group. The thing they left out was, of course, that the 18 to 29-year-olds don't have the money to spend. So that's a little suspect. But on the other hand, 76% of millennials want brands to be ecologically conscious, and that is absolutely true. I mean, we've seen that. That's what's happening. Our generations are becoming more, thank goodness, more ecologically, environmentally aware. So tapping into those predispositions to want and giving people something that they can trust. So it comes back to your second question, which is, I believe, that's why certification is growing. We did not slow down during this recession. We just grew. We just tripled the size during this recession of the last about 4 or 5 years. Because despite everything, companies are realizing that what they have to say about their products isn't necessarily trustworthy to consumers, and they're needing third party. Now, I don't know if you're aware of this. This is maybe just kind of insider stuff, but there's a real difference there are differences of opinion within the certification world. There are differences of opinion about life cycle assessment and how to perform it. There are a lot of things that haven't been ironed out about a lot of these details, and it's nothing simple. I just come back to that. Instead of KISS, keep it simple, stupid, it should be nothing is simple, NIS, or I come up with a better acronym, I will.
Thank you. I want to open it up to the audience. Does anybody have any questions here?
Andy, who is awarding the stars
Right.
on your site?
The person or company that creates an entry, they can do it themselves initially. So what we're going to be implementing is a system that has numerical figures. So this consumes so many kilowatts or emits so many decibels, so that at the end, I don't know if you're buying feed for your salmon, you know how many parts per million of mercury. But because there are so many things to measure, so many units, it's got an added complication. So we're keeping it simple at the very early stage and adding the stars, and then people can rate it. People tend to ask, how do we make sure that the quality is good in this platform? And in the same way that there's the internet, and anybody can create a web page, and at the end of the day, depending on how Google ranks you, you get more or less exposure. We do something similar. Everybody can create an entry in Saspro, but people can rate you, and depending how you break down the benefits of sustainability, if you relate with other sustainable products, if you link it, there are a number of factors that your entry will be either higher up or lower down in the different list, and therefore get more or less exposure. This allows us, when we open this up to China and so on, we cannot afford having a team of 1,000 Mandarin-speaking people controlling every content. We need to crowdsource that the people in your community around you are able to check, vote, comment, if they like it or not, and It's not perfect, but this is again what we hope that can allow it to expand globally. And we're a believer, at least I myself, that perfection is the enemy of the good. So if it's, if we reach 90%, like if you see the entry for a waterless urinal or whatever, I mean, you know that's good. It saves you in terms of water, so you can give it a lot of stars. There are some things which are perhaps less intuitive. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those were some interesting stats you threw out about, and great to hear that people are self-identifying as, we want to buy sustainable stuff. I mean, there aren't that many huge sustainable brands. I mean, let's face it, people always want to believe the best in themselves, so those surveys, of course I would do it, then you're actually shopping, you're actually in the grocery store or whatever, and you save $5, whatever it is. So I'm curious to think, who do you guys consider the role models? Who is, maybe, I think of Walgreens, or not Walgreens, Walmart, as an institution, but not necessarily as a product, that has kind of made, at least publicly, they're kind of known for saving money and, interested in certification on that. But who are some of your beacons? Who is somebody who's done it at scale and has gone mainstream, who you're borrowing from, and what are some of those lessons that you're learning from?
I think Patagonia, but they're an easy example, and I hesitate slightly because I think that their target market is self-selecting, and there are people who, I say that with a caveat that, there are people who can afford outdoor gear and who are already probably predisposed to be able to spend a little bit more money for green. I do think, this water bottle or a product that just makes your life better, that you feel good about using, is what we should aspire to, not going green, because we're in such a bubble in the Bay Area, and I think that for us to think that anyone else across the country who walks into Target to make a decision, that if anything, they feel, their mom, they feel nervous because they know plastic is bad, but they're paralyzed because they're in a rush and they don't have much money. So I just think products that enchant, that make you feel good about doing the right thing, are the key, but I don't have a specific product in mind.
Yeah, I agree with you. My first thing came into my mind was Patagonia too, but I'm sure you can pick apart some things there that,
What about Staples?
Or like Levi's, they've done a
They've
full
done a lot on
life
water,
cycle assessment of their jeans, from picking the cotton and how much water that costs, all the way to how many times you wash the jeans before they're unwearable. And that's a lot of work. And I don't necessarily know that a lot of people even know that Levi's did that.
Yeah, and I think just simple things, that's also a big thing that comes into play with this product, the Zip Cup, that you're trying to get someone to change behavior. You're going to try to get someone to wash their jeans less when we've been conditioned, put in the big scoop of Tide, wash every day, shower, these sort of things that are baked in. So it's cool that Levi's, I respect them for that. It's a great.
Yeah, and I don't know
example.
actually how much marketing they do around their CSR and
Not
that work that they've done.
But there's the whole Sustainable Apparel Coalition, which is made up of Levi's and every other major fabric company and shoe company in the world. And all these guys, of course, got kicked, in the rear end when Nike and some of Kathy Lee or whoever it was, the early exposure of social problems in their good. I'd like to answer your question with some other examples. Here's a great example, Raley's Supermarket. Never would think of it, right? Raley's Supermarket took on the state of California when we started working with them in 1987. We talked to them about the problem with pesticide residues in food, and we educated them about the fact that most of the pesticides available in use and for which were registered for use in this country didn't have adequate health data available in them. And we set up a program to start testing their food to help them decipher which of their shippers were sending them food with lots
mean, that's an awesome example, but
Yeah.
aren't there, I mean, these guys are kind of doing one-off, but to the point about Levi's, I didn't really know that Levi's did anything, and I'm not a shopper. I mean, it seems like they're almost like covering on one level, but they're not really going behind the scenes.
And the reason I think that they are is because the apparel and shoe wear industries come under such fire that their industry really has pulled back. They're doing a lot of work, and I mean, I'm familiar with a lot of what they're doing with their metrics and scorecarding systems, but they're doing it behind the scenes because they really don't want to go out in front of the public with this. They want to, they will at some point, I'm sure, have it, but what this whole Sustainable Apparel Coalition's idea is to do this as a united front, because what they run into as separate companies is that they don't, even the large companies like Nike don't necessarily have the clout to pull their whole supply chain with them because their suppliers can ship to their competition, Reebok or whoever. So that's why they pulled this coalition together, because they want to put an end to this shell game where the suppliers will ship to someone else if they don't like the specs that they're setting, the sustainability specs. And so it's really interesting. They've learned this lesson through years and years of having to deal with it. And they're building a system that may not be perfect, but it's definitely moving in the right direction. And this way they feel like they're going to get a lot more global buy-in from the supply chain, and they also will have the buy-in with each other's reinforcement, knowing they won't be undercutting each other on these issues.
You mentioned Walmart a minute ago. They've got out their sustainability index, and they're asking their suppliers in terms of water consumption, energy consumption, and if the price is roughly the same, they go for the more sustainable product, and that's literally moving markets. And I mean, they're like the evil, but on the other side, I mean, if they, but if they do it just a bit, and I think they actually are doing quite a bit with, it's getting some traction, and it can move countries. Another example of Walmart, for example, in the United States, growing organic cotton. If you're a farmer that grows cotton normally, it would take you roughly, I can't remember if it was like 3 or 5 years, a really long time to shift from normal growing to organic cotton. And that period of transition, you cannot sell your cotton as organic, but Walmart will pay your, as if it were already labeled as organic, so it's kind of aiding the farmer during this transition, and every time there's more and more demand. So, yeah, I mean, one can criticize a lot, but they're also, I think they're starting to do quite a bit, and they should get some merit for that.
They have been, and they've been providing transparency in their supply chain so that they have ethical sourcing.
Yeah, the sustainability index, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also changing the consumer. So I come from, and I've sold to Walmart and places like that. So I've been in sales, and I've worked with, LifeFactory and method fitting products and stuff to like toys and robotics. And in the toy section, the toy buyer is like, all right, so they told me I have to do this whole sustainability thing, and it was really hard because the consumers are looking at a smaller package that would have taken less gas to get the product to the stores, which is good, right, on the sustainability index. But the consumers thought then it should cost less because they were they're conditioned to see a smaller package should cost me $1.99, not $5.99 or whatever it is. And so it's all about, like you said, a lot of it has to do with culture. And we living in the Bay Area, we sometimes forget we're in this little bubble of where we are more educated, and we do ask for and push our suppliers, our stores and whatnot to do and things that we want them to do, but in the rest of the country, it's still really, really hard. I mean, once you leave the country, it's even easier, obviously, for Europe and stuff, where it's just a way of life. Their everyday is a big deal for us, like, I live in El Cerrito, and for us to recycle is like a really big deal, which is really like killing me, but in Germany, like, you barely have any trash. Everything goes into recycling. You have to pay a lot of money to be able to get trash out the door, basically. And so people don't create a lot of trash. I mean, it's just another way to think about, like, what it should cost for the consumer at the end of the day to change their behaviors.
It's even illegal. Like, if you get the police slicing and they see that in your bag there's something that shouldn't be, you get fined.
Oh, I've seen tags on the office in San Francisco. So that's the stuff.
And then another issue is, so the corporations that produce waste or recyclable trash or plastic or whatever, should they be responsible for collecting that? And should there be a fee for that as well? So, I mean, that's another issue.
We're talking about here being in the bubble, which is absolutely the case, but in that case, also in Europe, I mean, again, Northern European countries, they represent a bit the bubble, but for example, if you look how organic food is crossing into France and into Spain, so I'm sure, like, you know, here you've got to happen, eventually it will be going further down the rest of the country. And also, like, for another example, in Spain, the last years there was a huge, some years ago, construction boom, and sustainability was the big word, even if you put a solar panel, and there was definitely a big problem of greenwashing, and all these sustainable architects that were like criticizing it. Personally, I didn't think it was that bad in the sense that at least it brought the words sustainability into the public in terms of construction, and that in itself, like here the tech bubble in the early, in 2000, you had the internet company, lots of millions, bubble, at the end it burst, and at the end you're left out with the companies that really have something behind them. And I think that's also the case now that there was like a survey that people in the UK or so, they're starting to identify what's greenwashing, what's not, and it's giving it time to things.
There's something in what you just said I wanted to remind me. Sustainability, and I brought this up earlier, do you know what that means? Well, the Federal Trade Commission is putting out its new green guides and declined to include sustainability in its new guides. It was raised by many of the commenters during the public comment period that they needed to start defining the use of this term because it's getting out of hand and it's beginning to become the new natural. You all know natural means nothing, right?
Right, and organic means nothing now as
It's
well.
the new natural. Sustainability is if you go, and Chip, who's sitting here, goes to the food conventions, and he can tell you how many foods are touting their sustainability. No one knows what that means anymore. And the fact is they refuse to do it because they don't know what it means, and they don't even know where to start. That's essentially what their response was to the public comments. We don't even know where to begin, so we're going to defer this issue until the next time we come out with green guides, which will be how many years from now. One of the things that means is that it's left to the standardization world, the voluntary standardization world, to define sustainability. So there are several initiatives going on. Some of you are probably already familiar with some of them. The BIFMA standard level, which is the business and industry manufacturing furniture association. So they have a sustainable furniture standard. And then there's, the NSF 140 standard, which is a sustainability standard for carpet. And I'm currently involved with the national effort to create a national sustainable agriculture standard for foods and agricultural crops. And there are many other, and
What about cradle to cradle?
Pardon?
What about cradle to cradle?
What about it?
Is there any standardization for cradle to cradle?
Well, when you say
Or is
cradle
it
to
just a
cradle,
term
that's a Bill McDonough term.
Right.
That's, the real term, the term is cradle to grave. Cradle to cradle is kind of a term.
Okay.
But the meaning of cradle to grave is that you're looking at all of the impacts from the time materials come out of the ground through every stage of manufacturing, processing, distribution, et cetera, through use and disposal. And to me, that's where the answer lies. Because
Right.
again, you come back to what are the range of environmental and human health impacts that can be defined that are relevant to this product, that are applicable to this product and environmentally relevant, and what are they? What are these impact levels? And then can we measure
turned into a certification?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And then also as a, as a term for sustainability, at least a.
Well, for the environmental component of sustainability, because sustainability coming out of Rio
Oh, right.
1992 is social and economic and environmental.
Sure, yeah.
So for the
right.
environmental component, and a lot of people use sustainability to mean environmental.
Right, yeah, and
But,
yeah, corporate
yes.
social responsibility, yeah, you're right, right. Yeah.
In my opinion, we need a kayak for sustainability, and maybe it's your site, but we used to have to go to 5 travel sites to book a flight, and then kayak came in and put it all in one place. And this happened a little bit in the building world. A site called Honest Building pulled data from all of the sources and put it in one place. And all that data still exists, all of the standards still exist, they still can meet their niche, but a decision maker and the people I work can work in one place, get an Energy Star score, get a LEED rating, find out who owns the building, find out when the HVAC was replaced. Really granular, really simple. It's kind of a beautiful site to look at. And I think that represents sort of what needs to happen for anyone who needs to make a decision. Is that everything gets pulled and you're not overwhelmed. And that's, I mean, I think it's fine maybe in our bubbles, but how does that translate to a decision in the store? I don't know the answer. I think that's a really hard answer.
Well, it sounds like what we keep coming back to is just making it easier for the consumer to understand what's out there, what they're buying, why they're buying it, and ultimately make their own decisions, but making that easier for sustainable products.
I'd like to give you an example that I think is really important here. There was an article in E-Magazine, the current issue of E-Magazine, so if any of you get it, go read this article. What's the title of the article? I have it here, I should look it up. In fact, I can't remember the exact title of the article, but I'll look it up if you want to know afterwards. It's the war between FSC and SFI, and it's forced.
The Redwood Wars.
Pardon?
The Redwood Wars.
The Redwood Wars, thank you. And this is based on a study that we did where, if you know the Forest Stewardship Council, they are a group that was formed, a multi-stakeholder international group to set responsible forestry practice standards for forests and chain of custody standards for products made from wood. And the wood industry hated that standard, so they came up with their own standard called the Sustainable Forestry Initiative. It kind of sounds similar, but they're not. So for years, it's been a debate between is FSC and SFI, are they the same, or do they really make a difference? You know, and in LEED, in the U.S. Green Building Council, there's a big debate. You guys know about LEED 2012 that got killed this year? Are you all familiar with that? LEED 2012, the new hotsy-totsy standard that was coming out, got nailed over this issue because of this battle going on. The NGOs that supporting the FSC were furious that SFI was going to be given equal credit within LEED for the first time. And what happened there was we did this study, and the study was of a forest that you're all familiar with if you're from California, up in the Humboldt forest area where Julia Butterfly sat in the tree, up in that area, up in the Northern California. So I don't know, is anyone not familiar with the big battles that went on for years? Maxam owned that land, and they were, Texas, and they were clear cutting it, and that's when the Julia Butterfly thing was going on. And then Pacific Lumber Company got it back, but Pacific Lumber Company was pretty much gutted. They continued on this clear cutting path, and during the time that Pacific Lumber owned this property and were clear cutting it, they were certified by SFI. And then that whole thing fell apart, and they went bankrupt, and they sold it to Mendocino Redwood Company, which set up a branch called Humboldt Redwood Company. Humboldt Redwood Company got certified by FSC, the legitimate certification. And we were able to do was go in and do a thorough study the impacts, the environmental impacts under the SFI label and under the FSC label, and show the dramatic difference between these two systems of forestry. One where they took out 381,000 old growth trees, and they chopped down those trees, and that was considered fine, certifiable as sustainable. So if you're in the store buying that piece of lumber, to make a short story long, which is what I just did, and you're buying that piece of lumber, and you can't, how simple can it, how simple can you really make it when that wood and that would look the same? They both have a certification label on them that say something that sounds like sustainable forestry, and they look the same. Well, I'm just here, I'm just going to buy this one. But they're completely different, because one represents the destruction of a forest and one doesn't.
And one's probably substantially less expensive.
No. Oh, no, same one. You wouldn't know the difference if you saw it. And there are people out there now who are using life cycle assessment who can't tell the difference because their methodologies are so poor.
Can't you put a label on it that says,
They don't
this
know what they're
destroys forest? I mean, seriously.
Well, that's what our magazine article did. We kind of caught SFI with the pants down.
Yeah, it's a cute little label, this destroys forest.
We're starting to run out of time, so I want to give the panelists, Pam, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, so these kind of certifications are not run by the government. So what keeps another company that competes with yours, or another, not a kingfisher, but say, an eagle or something?
There isn't.
And
It's the Wild West right now.
right. And so that's gonna be really
It's
more
a
confusing
real problem.
for
You guys,
consumers.
it's really up to you guys to know these certifiers and know the difference. Because really, this is again, if the perfect is going to get in the way of the good. Certification is moving the ball forward, but there are big differences here. And if we want to get sustainable, you guys, the product manufacturers, the product sellers, have to know the differences, have to research this, because the consumer never will.
And I think it gets back to the point of why I wanted Andy on this panel, is because it's one thing for the companies to do that work, but it's very difficult for them to get that information out to the public where they're looking for it. And I really, one of my dreams for CESPRO is that it really becomes more than just a Wikipedia, but it becomes, this your go-to reference. And if you're really looking for anything, you're going there first. And how we can all sort of bring it all back into a place where it makes it really easy for the consumers to make those sustainable choices. So I think on that note, we're going to have to wrap things up. I think we could go for another hour. This is such a great topic. But I know everybody's got things to do, and I told you we'd end at 8:30, and it's 8:30. So the speakers are going to be here afterwards, so you can talk to them with your additional questions. And also, I can help you with connecting with them later if you don't get your question answered. And we have some door prizes to give away, so let's do that now. But before I do that, let's thank our great panel. Okay. So the first thing we will do